is no fixed or singular solution to violent crime. It's a complex issue. And it's even proven more complex over the past 2 years. But prevention, intervention, and enforcement, which are all part of the city strategy to reduce crime, requires a holistic community response. And our strategy to reduce violent crime includes not only police-led approaches, but also community-based approaches to reduce crime. Community violence intervention is a necessary approach to reducing violent crime in communities. Community-based public safety programs that empower the community to protect its neighborhoods through violence reduction strategies should also be prioritized along with police-led strategies. Police-led strategies that focus on micro areas in communities are important in reducing crime. It is a short-term solution and provides a rapid response to community concerns. But those efforts alone are not going to reduce it. It is along with the focused deterrence efforts that are a little more complex and focus on social networks, require partnerships. All three methods are effective evidence-based strategies that the Baton Rouge Police Departments and our partners you hear today have implemented. We have set clear goals to reduce gun violence in our city, and we are committed to saving lives by stopping violence. As we prepared our strategic plan through the leadership of our mayor and through our partnership with the National Public Safety Partnership, we have experts that will be coming down the beginning of next month that will be working with all of the partners that you see here today, as well as all law enforcement leaders and departments that are operating in East Baton Rouge Parish to create a strategic plan for East Baton Rouge Police Department, inclusive of all our state, local, and federal law enforcement partners. So we look forward to working with these national experts and best practices and putting together this very detailed plan that will have outcomes and providing tools to measure those performances. And we will be delivering that for public consumption after our meetings at the conclusion of next month. I'm going to start off with asking our partners to come up and speak to some of the efforts that we have seen in working together. Let me be clear. All of the law enforcement partners in the city of Baton Rouge, we're working together. We are not in this alone. And there's a lot of hard work. We understand that it may not meet your expectations at this time, but I assure you, as your chief of police, as the leader of this police department, that we are working every day, that our detectives are working long hours to identify the individuals who are responsible for crime in the city of Baton Rouge. First, I'm going to ask our partners with the U.S.
My name is Christopher Felix, and I'm the Chief Deputy for the United States Marshal Service, stationed here out of Baton Rouge. We will continue our partnership with the Baton Rouge Police Department, as well with you, Chief. The last year, our task force, we arrested over 500 individuals. Of that 500, almost 200 was from the Baton Rouge area. So we will continue to work with the police department to help with the reduction of violent crime. With the United States Marshal Service, one of our main mandates is reduction of violent crime, and we do that through our fugitive task force. Here in the very near future, we'll be partnering with the Baton Rouge Police Department with a continual violent crime reduction, and we're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to the continuing and long-lasting partnership that we've fostered through the years. And as I said in the beginning, we will continue that, and hopefully in the next months or so, you'll be hearing about an initiative that we'll be starting with the Baton Rouge Police Department to continue with the violent crime reduction. Thank you.
Please state your name before you speak, please.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Captain Nick Manali of Louisiana State Police. Louisiana State Police is proud to stand with our law enforcement partners across the state and especially here in the Baton Rouge area to ensure safety in our communities. Over the last several years, we have allocated personnel throughout the Baton Rouge area to combat violent crime, especially on our Fugitive Apprehension Unit, our Uniform Patrol presence, and of course working with our other resources like our Fusion Center, our Crime Lab, and specifically our Crime Gun Intelligence Center also to give leads to those violent crimes and solve those cases quickly. By taking this team approach, we add additional intelligence and investigative techniques to our tool belt and work together to keep our community safe. On the uniform patrol front, our troopers will work closely with the Baton Rouge Police Department to identify those high crime areas and use actionable intelligence to focus on those violent crimes, those offenders, and focus on those organizations and the small groups of the community that are affecting our citizens. The Fugitive Apprehension Center, Fugitive Apprehension Unit was actually initiated in the summer of 2016, and just this year alone has worked 124 cases in the East Baton Rouge area, focusing specifically on violent crimes, including homicide and arrest, armed robbery. 85% of those cases were cleared throughout the year, making a significant difference in our community and getting those violent offenders across the street. So we're going to make sure that we remain committed to our partners and keep our community safe. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Major Todd Marsh with the Sheriff's Office. I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Gautreaux. Sheriff Gautreaux is very concerned about the violent crime increase here in Baton Rouge. Many years ago, when we first started the Violent Crimes Unit, Sheriff Gautreaux was instrumental in forming that group of Violent Crimes Unit at the Louisiana State Police, where all of our federal, state, and local partners have been working together since, continue to work together every day, trying to target those individuals that are responsible for the violent crimes. Sheriff Gautreaux has directed our personnel. We've been very busy identifying small groups of individuals through our intelligence division and through the crime strategy unit, which is very beneficial here in helping us with the data, specifically identifying individuals in related to groups and our gun violence. Through those efforts, from our detectives to our uniform patrol to our street crimes unit, we've had an increase in illegal guns used in activities this year, from 23% increase from last year. Last year we had 638 guns that was used in illegal activities seized. This year we've already had 783 for 2021. So that's a significant increase in 145 more guns that were seized off the streets that are used in illegal activity. We talked about CGIC, our Crime Gun Intelligence Center. Sheriff Gautreaux was very instrumental in that. When that was formed over 3.5 years ago, Sheriff Gautreaux allowed the Sheriff's Office to hire a firearms examiner, with the funds were paid for by just her salary through the grant, which that grant expired for that salary. So Sheriff Gautreaux created a new position, and we have a firearms examiner now that was hired and continue on at the Louisiana State Police Crime Lab to help us with crime violence in our violent crime gun strategy reduction area that we're focusing on. But Sheriff Gautreaux is committed to working with our partners. He has been in the past. We will continue to do so, and all of our assets will be available to help us to fight our crime reduction areas. Thank you.
Good morning, Hilla Moore, District Attorney. As everybody here knows, 2021 was a bad year for Baton Rouge, a bloody year. However, despite that, Baton Rouge remains, in most parts, a safe place to live and to work. Murder is rarely random, barring some exceptions. And we've seen some exceptions this year. The young family man at a barbershop that was killed was not the intended target. We've seen several children that have been killed this year. That is something that is exceptional, that is random. Murder is rarely random. This homicide that we're dealing with now, it's a nationwide issue. However, the solutions here are local. For Baton Rouge, when I say that homicide is concentrated and we are safe, homicides in Baton Rouge, like anywhere else, they're concentrated amongst people, places, and locations. If you're not a gang member, a group member, if you're not in a drug dealing organization or in a very bad domestic violence situation, you are most parts safe in Baton Rouge as you are in any other city. For 2022, the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney's Office will remain committed to firearms-related violence and prosecuting those who are arrested for these types of offenses. We have the Crime Strategies Unit as well as our Gun Crime Intelligence Center that you heard talked about. We are continuing to collect data on a daily basis, provide that to our law enforcement partners so that they can readjust their patrol and their detective strategies around the data that we find. One alarming trend that we've seen recently is the fully automatic weapons. We have around 30 existing fully automatic weapon arrests that we're now in the process of prosecuting. So that's something that's that's a dangerous operation. I know our federal partners, our local partners who are here today are very aware and keen on that, and that's something that we will be mindful of this year. Our criminal justice system in whole needs to get to a better normal. What affects us a lot is our trials and how can we get to court. Court has been hit and miss for the last 2 years, unfortunately, because of COVID. In 2020, we only had 12 jury trials, down from 30, 40, or 50 in the years before. And in 2021, we only had 16 jury trials. That's a significant reduction. We need to find a way to make cases move quickly through the system, but also be fair while being quick. We also have a significant backlog. All of our agencies represented here today see repeat violent offenders, repeat gun offenders that are in and out of jail on multiple bonds. We need to make sure that we keep our dangerous offenders in prison pending trial, and make sure that we let those that are not a risk to public safety out on bond. And in conjunction with that, at this point in the state of Louisiana, our prison population is at the lowest that it's been in decades, as it has our parish prison. It's the lowest in probably 30 or 40 years. So we have room to house those that are public safety problems for us, and those that are do not present public safety, we should find a way to have them make bond. Cooperation between the public, law enforcement, and the judicial system is crucial. We need to be able to regain the trust in the community and signal to the few violent offenders in our community that their actions are not condoned, and that the community, the courts, will hold them accountable for their actions. Parents and neighbors are essential allies in crime reduction. We don't need parents standing next to their child that's not allowed to have a weapon on social media with guns, with drugs. That obviously is improper, sends the wrong message. Large-scale violence reductions aren't easy, and law enforcement alone is not the solution. It's essential to have all agencies and parts of the community to self-reflect, both historically and presently, whether each agency is working optimally and examining whether gaps in their services are the reasons why we are where we are today. It's no mystery why Louisiana is where we are, and Baton Rouge as well. Louisiana ranks near last in almost every metric used to measure community health: education, poverty, race relations, literacy, economy. Our rankings in these categories is why we have the disproportionate amounts of violence for a community our size. The lack of attention into these issues is the main reason that we face this current violent crime public health emergency. Law enforcement is surely not the sole cause, nor the sole solution to the violence and murder that we see. The desired changes cannot occur immediately, and progress will take long-term efforts and investment. However, acknowledging and being honest about these issues is the essential first step that needs to start now. This will take a huge shift in thought, manpower, and providing adequate services for those individuals and institutions that are involved: our community groups, youth sports activities, courts, prosecutors, public defenders, law enforcement, educators, and others. Two things that came to mind when we were talking about this conference were Louisiana, and particularly Baton Rouge. We love and we invest heavily in college sports. And this is not a knock on college sports. It's actually a compliment. We invest personal, business, and state dollars in supporting sports programs and athletics to ensure that they're well-equipped, elite, and given whatever they need to ensure that they reach their potential. We want a winning team. We have the best, but to be the best costs money and costs investment. For our athletes, we give them mentoring, nutrition, training, access to doctors, psychologists, access to premium coaching and staffing. Now we have national NIL investments locally as well as nationwide, where athletes are given money for the jobs that they do. What's important and telltale is that these athletes in their age groups, they're receiving extensive community support and resources. They're of the same age, and they're oftentimes from the same background as those at the most risk of receiving and participating in violence and homicide. We deal with the same group, one group, because of their potential and where they are and the support that we give them as a community, as a nation, receive a lot more money and attention than those who are at risk for killing. Baton Rouge has an incredible potential for matching the amount of resources and donations going into college sports, into at-risk youth, and those at risk of committing violence, which has substantial long-term impact. If we want the same success and outcome for troubled youth as we do for our athletes, it requires a similar investment and commitment from all community and all agencies. We're going to pay one way or the other. The front end with education and services are a much wiser way to spend our money than the back end with death, broken families, and incarceration. The other telltale sign was the COVID reaction to the public. This nation, the country, was stood on their head with COVID. Look what happened when COVID came. Look what this community did in Baton Rouge. Look what the state did. Look what the nation and the world did. They put their money, their effort, everything behind what they had to do. So we recognize that COVID-19 takes a collective action of the community to combat, and it is time that we apply the same collective action to combating violent crime. Beyond law enforcement, it takes commitment from community leaders, local business owners, city government, and everyday actions of residents to curb violence. For those too committed to violent lifestyles, we need an effective law enforcement to hold them accountable and prevent them from harming others. But we can't save vulnerable youth and trauma-affected survivors from the cycle of violence through police action alone. Making a pathway away from violence requires people, resources, planning committed to love, committed to seeing the potential in these at-risk individuals, and treating every victory as they achieve as the victory for Baton Rouge as a whole. If we wish to heal as a community, we first need to understand where our wounds are and what treatment is required. We're experiencing a public health crisis with our levels of violence and homicides. We can't just hope and believe that Baton Rouge can be a much better place than it currently is. We now need to work and invest in these efforts. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I'm Johnny Dunham, the Executive Director for Crime Stoppers here in Baton Rouge and the 8 parish surrounding area. Crime Stoppers has been around for 40 years. It has been the one resource that the public has to call and give information on violent and felony crimes and remain anonymous and receive a cash reward for the tips that they give us. The police department and all these law enforcement agencies cannot reduce crime on their own. They need the public's help. We've seen an increase in the number of calls. We received over 2,000 tips last year that directly resulted in the solving of 10 homicides here. That's double what we solved in 2020, which was 5 through Crime Stoppers tips. So the public is responding, but we need the public's help to continue to help solve this crime problem we have in Baton Rouge. So the public can call 344-STOP, 344-7867. They can go Crime Stoppers BR and submit a tip through the website or crimestoppersbr.com, or they can download the P3 app on their telephone through the Google App Store or the Apple App Store and download P3, go to Baton Rouge Crime Stoppers, select that as your Crime Stoppers. You can submit video, you can submit tips, pictures, anything through the app, and we need the public's help. The police department cannot do this on their own. So Crime Stoppers is here. It is the one assistance for the police department through tip service. It's been around for 40 years, and it has a proven track record. We've paid out over $2 million in rewards, and will continue to do so. So we need the public's help.
Good morning. I'm Aishla Burgess, and I'm the Executive Director of Truce. And at Truce, our goal is to reduce violence by offering services to our young people who are at risk to commit those crimes. Our goal is to ensure that they have the right and the resources to a productive and successful life. But you've heard enough, and you've heard from all of our law enforcement partners, to the community. We need you. We need your help in helping to reduce crime in Baton Rouge. Our goal for 2022 is to increase custom notifications. And custom notifications is a process for us to intervene in violence before it happens, but we cannot intervene if we don't know. Just Friday, we had a mom that said, "Oh, I knew that shooting was gonna happen because I saw them arguing on social media." That's information that we need to know to intervene. To our young people, I'm speaking to you right now. Enough is enough. And we are asking you to put down your guns and take advantage of all of the services that we have to offer in Baton Rouge. We have social workers that will help you and guide you through the process to achieve a successful life. Everything we offer at Truce is absolutely free. We will help you with transportation. We will help you find jobs. We will help you with job readiness skills. We will help you obtain a driver's license, a TWIC card, and anything you need to be successful. But you have to take the first step, and you have to want to do better. And we are here for you. We don't want you to merely live, okay? We don't want you just to exist. We want you to live. We don't want you to just survive. We want you to thrive. But it's going to take all of us to get our young people in a position to do what's right. We don't want you to be a part of the statistics that you have heard. We don't want you in jail, in the grave, or injured in the hospital. We want you safe, we want you free, and we want you alive. And if you are listening and it is burning in your spirit to make that change right now, please give us a call at 225-239-7835. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask the captain to come up, introduce yourself, because we've made about, just since January 1st, first 3 weeks of this year, right around 15 arrests for homicides and other violent crimes and shooting incidents. And I want you to come and highlight a few of those arrests, recent arrests that we've made as it relates to violent crime.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. I'm Captain Shannar Carey, Criminal Investigation Bureau Commander. Last year, we took into our evidence division over 1,500 guns off the streets of Baton Rouge. That's just the city police. That doesn't include the sheriff's office. That does not include Baker Police or other agencies. That's just within the City of Baton Rouge Police Department's evidence division. I just want to highlight a few cases and efforts that we're doing to reduce violent crimes in our city. On just last week, our detectives investigated a case where 2 juveniles attempted to rob an individual of his property. The juvenile suspects shot this individual multiple times, and in doing so, they injured themselves. These juveniles have been both charged and booked with armed robbery and attempt murder. Another case our detectives investigated was an arrest on a shooting which occurred on McClellan Drive, wherein the victim was shot multiple times. This shooting resulted in a homicide, and with the assistance of our federal partners, our U.S. Marshals, we were able to take this suspect into custody. A lot of these cases I won't go into detail about because these cases are still going through the judicial process, so I'll just give you briefings on what we have on these cases. Yet again, with the assistance of our federal partners, we have made yet another arrest pertaining to a homicide shooting that occurred on Lobdell Drive. And lastly, detectives today investigated a stabbing incident wherein a female had stabbed another female multiple times, almost causing her to end her life. She was subsequently identified after extensive investigation, and she was subsequently arrested for attempt murder. So it just goes to show that it's not male, it's females as well, it's juveniles as well, and we intend to bring each and every individual that's causing havoc and violence in Baton Rouge to justice. With the aid of our federal partners, we intend to do that. And yet these are just a few of the crimes that I've enumerated and addressed, and thank you so much for your attention.
And I would also like to acknowledge, because I received a thank you from Thibodeau, our police officers arrested a suspect who fled from the Thibodeau area and was arrested this weekend. So I want to thank our officers for participating in working with them to get that person off the streets as well as the apprehension of a group of individuals in the city who were involved in some armed robberies. I received that update as well. So what am I saying? There is a lot of hard work going on in the city of Baton Rouge. You heard from all of our partners. You heard from Truce. Please take her up on that. There's a parent out here out there that's listening, that know that their child fits in that category. Please call Truce. You have an opportunity to save a life. And I'm going to ask one more, because we're talking about service, and I'm going to wrap it up with the enforcement piece. Because we talk about prevention, intervention, but there's enforcement. And all three of those have to work together. And before I do that, we have one more service provider. I'm going to ask you to come up and introduce yourself and speak. And
Good morning. My name is Jazzica Matthews. I'm the Director of Operations for Safe, Hopeful, Healthy, which is out of office of Mayor Broom, which is her and that office's answer to addressing social determinants of health. One of the things that we focus on is community-based public safety, and so bringing community into the work is very important. Aisha discussed, that it's important that folks in the community really get alongside the work that our law enforcement is doing, because we know that we cannot police our way out of, the situation without the support of community. The office is supporting a lot of initiatives. One in particular that we do invest in is the Baton Rouge Community Street Team, which is a group of credible messengers in our city who are from the community, and they are there to offer services to community as well as intervene as they are able to do. So, it's important that community come alongside. Now, this is really what I'd like to say. I was at a rally yesterday, and it was with community-based organizations. And it's important, just as our law enforcement has come together, and they are coming together to work together, it's important that all of our organizations decide that, we work together to address this issue. It's going to take everybody. So that's what I have to say.
I see Constable here. I know you out there on the steps out there. We appreciate your partnership as well in helping the community come. You heard Crime Stoppers talk about the increase in number of calls that are coming in. You heard Crime Stoppers talk about how those calls are leading to the arrests and identification of those persons. Those are small steps in the right direction. You heard about all of the work. I want to talk about our violent crime unit, which is housed at the Louisiana State Police Headquarters, and our analysts and the work of our real-time crime center. We began a rigorous problem analysis on incidents, shooting data, law enforcement intelligence, GIS mapping, where crimes are occurring, to identify people and groups most likely to be involved in violent incidents. And we have identified those micro locations or hotspots in our city where most violence happens. We are disseminating this data to train street outreach workers, faith-based leaders, those involved in the recovery, and other non-police individuals with relevant experience to help with that prevention and intervention piece that we talked about. But I want to speak a little bit on the enforcement piece, because that is very, very important. We have taken the information that we analyze and we have created a plan for engaging key individuals and locations of concern. The multidisciplinary response to community gun violence will focus on the highest risk people and places, those individuals involved in domestic violence, and individuals and groups that are involved in the distribution of drugs and gun violence. The enforcement piece to this plan has already begun. You heard state police talk a little bit about it in our assisted patrol efforts, directed patrols. We will not provide specifics related to the enforcement operations at this time at the request of my officers, but please note, there is a lot of work being done. This operation will last over the next 5 months, where we will reevaluate and present to the public our findings. This plan is a partnership with our state, local, federal partners, and also our community partners. You will see more law enforcement presence in some neighborhoods. I have authorized the use of overtime dollars for our specialized divisions, those in our violent crime unit, including our aviation. You will see the use of drones, our SRT street crimes, CIB detectives, as well as uniform patrol. This place-based policing and these micro areas that I'm speaking of are necessary to disrupt the cycle of gun violence in those specific areas of our city. Our enforcement efforts will be in concert with the prevention and intervention efforts that I previously mentioned. Now, to those who live in these areas of concern, when you witness this increased presence in your neighborhood, I want to make sure you understand that this is not a call for more enforcement-oriented efforts in our disinvested communities, because that's where we are seeing high calls for services. This is a proactive policing effort to build trust and to work with you in identifying the persons, groups driving the gun violence in our city. And we will work with you in identifying, and we're going to get those calls up. You're going to see community canvases. One thing that helps us in those efforts is you will remain anonymous. You will remain anonymous, but we need to know who those bad actors are. So you will see a very strategic approach in identifying and those that we already know about, giving them the attention to stop the gun violence in our city. We're working. Baton Rouge, keep talking, because we will never stop listening. Now we'll take questions. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, can you kind of summarize how this really differs from past plans? I know we've heard you talk for the past couple of years about how to tackle this issue, so what makes this so much different?
So it's two things. We did a better analysis of the data. You know, what we're seeing is today's suspect is tomorrow's victim. Today's victim is tomorrow's suspect. We're starting to connect a lot of these crimes together. So it's taking a more strategic approach with the data and trying to prevent it. But I think one of the things that we're excited about is we've never had an East Baton Rouge strategic plan to reduce violence. The Baton Rouge Police Department has its plan. Other agencies have. So through the mayor's leadership, for the first time, we'll have an East Baton Rouge strategic plan to address violence, and all law enforcement agencies will be included in that. And having help from our federal partners so that we're looking at best practices. You know, we've seen a lot of changes in trends since COVID happened. And, you know, we're making those adjustments. We believe that we're going to show reductions based on these plans that we have in place because we're making those adjustments. But it has been challenging. It really has. It has exacerbated all of the socio-economic issues that drive crime in our city. Yes, sir.
I know you said law enforcement isn't the sole answer here, but it plays a large part. What impact has the lack of a narcotics division for BRPD had on crime in our city, and what plans are there to bring that branch back online and maybe get officers back in that division?
Yeah, so let me be clear. We still have narcotics activity going on. What we looked at was the type of cases that we were doing, right? What we did is we repurposed those assets into working more long-term investigations with our federal partners. We increased our presence on task forces with DEA. When we look at the majority of the cases that were being worked, we've used our street crime unit for that. And also working closer with the sheriff. When you look at the efforts of the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office Narcotics Division, they've been doing a pretty good job of addressing the middle to upper level drug dealers in the city. And there's been a lot of presses out there. So focusing that direction to those individuals, focusing our efforts on individuals involved in drugs who are also involved in gun violence in our city. is now our focus. We have operations, DEA is part of that, and we're going to be addressing that. But no, I don't think that had any negative impact on crime in our city.
You said a lot of this crime is caused by juveniles. How much of that do you think is involving gang activity?
So when we look at the homicides and the shooting incident, let's start with the homicides. Those cases where we can prove a motive, or can show a motive, it's arguments, it's disagreements, it's retaliation with group violence, and 20% of our homicides are domestic violence. Drugs, we just had, and I think he talked about it recently, we know we just had several drug-related shooting incidents as well. That's something that we've seen since COVID, that it disrupted the drug trade. And the data's a little different as well as there. We're seeing drug dealers robbing drug dealers. We were seeing that in Houston when we talked to our partners out there as well.
About gang activity, how is this?
Well, when a group gang violence retaliation is part of it, yes, sir. One of the key things that we're seeing is social media's influence on violence in the city, not just here, but nationally. We're starting to see that social media is playing a role. We're seeing incidents, threats, and things happening on social media are having real-life consequences.
You say you're bringing in some experts.
Yep.
How much is that going to cost, and who's going to pay for that?
It doesn't cost. We're fortunate. Part of our National Public Safety Partnership, we were the recipients of technical assistance in training. We are sending a team of police officers from our agencies to some of our peer cities that are experiencing violence. We're looking at those cities that have a success better than ours, looking at new initiatives, and we're going to be sending them to, I believe, 2 different parts of the country. But this won't cost us any money out of our budget. That we've already been approved for that technical assistance in training.
One more question.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We're doing another separate story about juveniles escaping from prison. What do you think about having to use some of your resources to capture some of these youngsters who have escaped from prison, that escaped from out of your jurisdiction? I know you guys are assisting and trying to track down some of these escapees.
Well, I think you just heard from, we have 2 initiatives that are designed, the State Police Fugitive Task Force, as well as our U.S. Marshals Task Force. That is their responsibility, and they do a pretty good job. We have police officers assigned to that. When we look at the work, we don't talk about the work with our partners at the FBI. We have a street crimes, Safe Street Task Force. We have Baton Rouge police officers assigned to the FBI. We have Baton Rouge police officers assigned to ATF as well. We have Baton Rouge police assigned to all of our federal initiatives. So there's a lot of work going on the national level that we're also assisting in. But we have specialized units that address that.
Can you clarify for me how this East Baton Rouge strategic plan, is that like being funded through the public safety partnership?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is. So that strategic plan, we've been working with them for a couple of years now, and we've been very looking at best practices around the country. But now we're going to have more inclusive strategic planning with all of our partners. And what is it going to do? We're going to identify long-term strategic outcomes. We're going to establish goals collaboratively, where it's not just Baton Rouge Police, but all of us are working for the same goals, right, to reduce violence, but also develop strategies to achieve those goals. And the back piece of that is a full plan development and review where we can measure our performances and make that available for public consumption.
Chief, departments across the nation have suffered a shortage in officers.
Yeah.
It's widely known. BRPD is no different in that. Where are we at in getting more officers recruited and on the streets, and how much of an impact is that shortage having on our efforts to be able to stop crime or even, get some of these people off the street?
Yeah, look, having boots on the ground is important, right? And that's not just BRPD. I mean, we see the challenges with recruiting at the state and local level since 2020. I believe the data will show you that we had 40% nationally increase in resignations and about 18% increase in retirements in law enforcement over the years. So retention and recruiting has been a challenge. We have been fortunate to have academies back to back to back. We have a academy going on right now, so please lift those young future police officers up. We want everyone to graduate. We have lost a few. I believe next week we have a graduation right in this room where we have 5 police officers who work for other agencies who came over and wanted to be a BRPD. So we're going to have that graduation. We had one officer who left and decided he wanted to come back and continue serving. He missed it. And we hired that officer back. So that graduation is going to be here. And we've already started our recruiting efforts with our next academy class, which is going to start in June. We're already doing backgrounds on that, so we believe we're going to have a pretty large class then. But it's been a challenge. It has been a challenge. We're probably looking at this year, our turnover ratio for 2021 is right around 9% ratio, which is probably one of the highest we've seen in the department. But because we've changed how we recruit, right? As you well know, we were under consent decree. And we sat down with our federal partners and we produced a plan to make Baton Rouge Police Department a police department that is more reflective of the community it serves. We see about a 10-point turnaround in 4 years, which is something that a lot of other agencies are struggling with, diversity. So we believe that our efforts in recruiting or we're not seeing as many challenges as those national numbers that I just spoke about. But we need your help. Go BRPD.com, GEAUX BRPD.com. If you know a young person who has a heart to serve and understand those values of loyalty, duty, honor, respect, personal courage, please go and apply to be a Baton Rouge police officer, and you can be that change agent. We need the help.
Thank you.